The gym where this happened wasn't some big flashy chain with neon lights and smoothie bars. Nah, this place was old school. Brick building, flickering fluorescent lights, rubber floors that smelled like sweat no matter how much you cleaned them. It sat at the edge of a quiet town in upstate New York, right next to a closed-down grocery store and a parking lot that always looked empty after dark. Most people came during the day, hit their sets, then got the hell out before midnight. But I worked the night shift. Back then I was 25, broke, and trying to keep my life together after dropping out of college. The gym owner needed someone to run the front desk overnight, clean the place, and make sure nobody broke anything. Easy job, right? That's what I thought too. For the first couple weeks, nothing strange happened. A few night owls would show up around midnight. Truck drivers, insomniacs, a couple hardcore lifters who swore late-night workouts hit different. By 1:30 a.m., the place would be empty again. Just me, the hum of the vending machine, and the echo of my own footsteps. Then I started noticing the locker room lights. See, the men's locker room had one of those motion sensor systems. If nobody moved in there for a few minutes, the lights would shut off automatically to save electricity. But almost every night around 2:15 a.m., those lights would flick back on, like someone had just walked inside. At first, I figured someone forgot something and came back. But the front door had a loud buzzer that went off whenever it opened. And every time the locker room lights turned on, the buzzer never sounded, meaning no one came in. The first time I checked it out, I walked into the locker room expecting to see some guy grabbing his gym bag or tying his shoes. But the room was empty. Rows of metal lockers, benches, a couple showers dripping slowly into the drains. Nobody there. The light stayed on for about 30 seconds before shutting off again. I shrugged it off. Old wiring, cheap sensors. But then the showers started turning on. One night around 2:40 a.m., I heard water running. At first, I thought it was rain hitting the roof, but then I realized the sound was echoing through the hallway. The locker room. I walked down the hall and pushed the door open. Steam poured out like someone had been taking a hot shower for a while. One of the shower heads was blasting water full force. The rest of the room was empty. No clothes on the bench. No towel. No bag. Just water hitting the tile floor. I turned the knob off and stood there listening. That's when I heard breathing. Heavy breathing. Like someone standing right behind me, trying to catch their breath after a brutal workout. I spun around. Nothing. Just rows of lockers and the buzzing fluorescent lights above me. I walked out of that locker room a lot faster than I walked in. After that night, things started getting worse. Machines would turn on by themselves. Dumbbells would roll across the floor. The mirrors in the stretching area sometimes looked wrong, like the reflections didn't match the room. But the thing that really messed with me happened about 2 months into that job. It was a Friday night, around 2:30 a.m. The gym was completely empty. Storm outside. Wind rattling the windows. I was sitting behind the front desk watching security cameras when I noticed movement on one of the screens. Locker room camera. The door opened slowly. But nobody walked out. It just opened, then stopped halfway, like someone was holding it. I leaned closer to the screen. The door stayed open for a full minute. Then it slowly closed again. That was the moment I decided I was done ignoring this crap. I grabbed the flashlight from the desk and walked toward the locker room. The hallway lights flickered as I passed under them. When I pushed the locker room door open, the air inside felt colder than the rest of the building. Not like normal cold either, like walking into a freezer. Every locker was closed. The benches were empty, but something felt off. Then I heard it. A locker door slowly creaking open somewhere behind me. I turned around. One of the lockers near the back wall had opened about 3 inches. I walked toward it slowly. Every step echoed across the tile floor. My heart was pounding like crazy. When I reached the locker, I grabbed the handle and pulled the door open. Inside, there was a gym bag. Old one, worn out black leather. I'd never seen it before. I unzipped it slowly. Inside was a pair of lifting gloves, a towel, and a membership card. The card had a photo on it. A guy in his 30s. Muscular. Short dark hair. But what really caught my attention was the date printed on the card. 15 years earlier. That's when I heard the showers turn on again. All of them. Water blasting from every shower head at once. The locker room filled with steam instantly, and through that steam, I saw someone standing near the far wall. Tall, broad shoulders, head slightly tilted, just watching me. I couldn't see his face clearly through the fog, but I knew one thing for sure. He wasn't there a second ago. The air suddenly felt heavier, like the whole room was pressing down on me. Then the man slowly stepped forward, and that's when I noticed something that made my stomach drop. His feet weren't making any sound. No footsteps, no water splashing, nothing. He kept walking toward me through the steam, slow, calm, like he had all the time in the world. I backed up until my shoulders hit the lockers behind me. My brain kept telling me this couldn't be real, but my eyes were watching it happen. When he got close enough of the light to hit his face, I recognized him, the man from the membership card. Same photo, same face, except now his skin looked pale, almost gray, and his eyes looked hollow, like something inside him had burned out a long time ago. He stopped about 6 feet away from me. Then he spoke. His voice sounded dry, like he hadn't used it in years. "You took my locker." My throat went dry instantly. I shook my head. I don't even use lockers, man." He stared at me for a long moment, then slowly raised his arm, pointing at the gym floor outside the locker room. "You should leave." I didn't argue. I walked straight out of that locker room, grabbed my keys, and left the building. The next morning I came back to return the gym keys to the owner. When I told him what happened, he went quiet. Then he walked into his office and pulled out an old newspaper clipping. He slid across the desk. The headline read, "Local man found dead in gym locker room after overnight workout." The photo on the article showed the same man from the membership card. Same face, same eyes. The owner leaned back in his chair and sighed. "Yeah," he said quietly, "you're not the first night worker to see him." I asked him one question before leaving. Why is he still there? The owner shrugged, then said something I'll never forget. Because he never finished his last workout. And to this day, I still refuse to step inside a gym after midnight. Because if you listen carefully late at night, sometimes you can hear the lockers opening and the showers turning on, even when nobody's there. The gym I'm about to talk about sat on the edge of a small Texas town, the kind of place where nothing much happens after midnight. During the day, it looked like any other fitness center. Rows of treadmills, racks of dumbbells, mirrors covering every wall, and a constant thump of weights hitting rubber mats. People came in after work, blasted their headphones, lifted heavy, and then went home. But late at night, that place felt completely different. My name's Aaron, and about 3 years ago, I worked the overnight shift there. I needed the money, and the job seemed easy. Sit at the front desk, wipe down equipment, lock the doors if anyone got rowdy. That was it. Most nights, only a handful of people showed up. A couple bodybuilders who swore lifting after midnight boosted testosterone, and a truck driver who used the treadmill before heading back on the road. By 2 a.m., the gym usually emptied out, and that's when things started getting weird. The first time something happened, I was doing a walk through the weight room, just making sure nobody left plates lying around. Everything looked normal until I heard a loud clang behind me, the sound of a barbell hitting the floor. I turned around fast. The deadlift platform was empty, but the barbell was rolling slowly across the rubber floor like someone had just dropped it. No one was there. I figured maybe the bar wasn't balanced right. Stuff like that happens sometimes. So I picked it up and put it back on the rack. But as I walked away, I had this strange feeling, like someone was watching me. You know that feeling you get when someone's staring at the back of your head? Yeah, it felt exactly like that. I turned around again. Still nothing. Just the empty gym and the sound of the ventilation system humming above me. After that night, weird stuff kept happening. Treadmills turning on by themselves. Weight stacks slamming down when nobody was near machines. Sometimes the mirrors would show movement that wasn't actually there. At first, I blamed it on the building being old. But then I started seeing him. The first time was in the security cameras. Around 2:30 a.m. one night, I was scrolling to the camera feeds on the front desk monitor when I noticed something strange. In the far weight room camera, a man was standing near the squat rack. Tall guy, broad shoulders, tank top, just standing there. I checked the entrance camera. Nobody had come in, which made no sense because the front door had a loud electronic buzzer. You couldn't enter the building without it going off. I switched back to the weight room camera. The man was gone, just vanished. I figured maybe the cameras glitched or something. But the next night, I saw him again. This time not on the cameras. In the actual gym, it was around 2:45 a.m. The place was empty like usual. I was wiping down one of the benches when I heard someone behind me say, "Still open?" The voice was low and rough, like someone who hadn't talked in a while. I turned around. A guy stood near the squat rack, tall, muscular, wearing an old gray tank top and black shorts. His skin looked pale under the lights, almost gray. I didn't recognize him as a regular member. "Yeah," I said, "we're open all night." He nodded slowly, then walked toward the deadlift platform. I watched him load plates onto the barbell. 2 plates, 3 plates, 4 plates. He moved silently, almost too quietly for someone that size. Then he gripped the bar and lifted it. The weight came up smooth, like it was nothing. He dropped it. Clang. The sound echoed through the empty gym. He lifted again, dropped it again, over and over. But something about the whole thing felt wrong. For one thing, he never breathed hard. Anyone lifting that heavy would at least grunt or breathe heavy. But this guy stayed completely silent. After about 10 minutes, I went back to the desk. When I checked the security cameras again, the weight room was empty. I looked up from the monitor quickly. The gym floor in front of me was empty too. The man was gone, but I never heard the door open. That was the first time I felt real fear working there. The next night, I decided to ask the gym owner about it. When I described the guy, his face went pale. He stayed quiet for a long moment. Then he said something that made my stomach twist. "You saw him lifting?" I nodded. The owner rubbed his face nervously. Then he told me a story. About 5 years earlier, a guy named Victor used to train there every night. Hardcore lifter. Huge dude, always pushing himself past the limit. One night, he came in around midnight and started deadlifting. Heavy, way heavier than usual. Nobody else was there except the night worker. Around 3 a.m., the night worker heard a loud crash from the weight room. When he ran in, Victor was lying on the floor, barbell across his chest. He collapsed during a lift, crushed under the weight. The ambulance came, but it was too late. Victor died right there on the deadlift platform. After hearing that story, I tried to convince myself the guy I saw was just a random member. But deep down I knew that wasn't true, because 2 nights later, I saw him again. It was exactly 3:03 a.m. The gym lights flickered suddenly. Then I heard the sound of plates clanking together. I walked slowly toward the weight room. And there he was again, standing at the deadlift platform, loading plates onto the bar. Except this time, there were way more plates than before, like an impossible amount of weight. The bar bent under the load. I stepped closer. "Hey, man," I said nervously. "You might want to be careful with that." He didn't respond, just gripped the bar, then slowly lifted it. The bar rose off the ground, shaking violently. For a moment, it looked like the weight might snap the bar in half. Then he dropped it. The sound shook the entire building. Clang. That's when he finally looked at me. His eyes were empty, completely lifeless, and his voice came out in a dry whisper. "Spot me?" My heart started racing. "I don't think that's a good idea, man." He stared at me for a few seconds. Then something horrifying happened. He lifted the bar again. But this time, the bar didn't stop at his waist. It kept rising, straight up, like gravity didn't matter. The plates rattled violently. The air around him felt wrong, cold, heavy. Then suddenly the bar slipped from his hands. It crashed down toward the floor, right through him, like his body wasn't even solid. The bar slammed into the platform with a deafening crash. When the noise faded, the weight room was empty again, just the barbell lying there. And to this day, I swear I still hear that sound sometimes. Late at night, the echo of heavy weights hitting the floor, like someone is still training there, still trying to finish that last lift, even though the man doing it has been dead for years. The gym wasn't supposed to be open that late. At least, that's what everyone always said. Technically, the sign on the door read 24 hours, but anyone who'd been working there long enough knew something weird happened after around 2 in the morning. Machines would start turning on by themselves sometimes. The lights in the far cardio section would flicker like someone was walking under them. And every now and then the front desk computer would log a check-in for someone who never actually walked through the door. But when you're broke and try to pay rent in a place like Ohio, you don't really get to be picky about night shifts. My name's Marcus, and about 2 years ago, I worked the overnight shift at a small gym just outside a quiet suburban neighborhood. The place was old, real old. The kind of gym where the equipment looked like it had survived 3 different decades. Metal dumbbells scratched to hell, rubber mats that smelled like sweat no matter how much you cleaned them, and mirrors that made the whole place feel bigger than it really was. Most nights were dead quiet. A couple insomniacs would come in. Maybe a truck driver passing through town would stop by to get a quick workout. But after midnight, it usually turned into just me, the humming of the vending machine, and the low buzz of fluorescent lights overhead. At first, nothing seemed off. Then the check-in started happening. The gym had this little scanner system where members swipe a card before entering. Around my 3rd week working nights, I noticed something weird. At 2:17 a.m., the computer beeped and logged someone entering. Except no one walked in. I looked up from my phone, expecting the door to open, but the entrance stayed closed. Just a dark parking lot outside and the reflection of the lobby lights on the glass. I checked the log. Member name David K. The system said he had entered, but the camera over the front door showed nothing. No car, no person, no door opening. I figured it was just a glitch. Old system, cheap equipment. Still, it happened again the next night. Same time, 2:17 a.m. Beep, member check-in. Different name this time. Still no one entering. After about a week of that crap, I mentioned it to my manager. She barely even looked up from her laptop when I told her. System bug, she said. Then she paused. Just ignore it. The way she said that felt weird, like she didn't want me digging deeper. So I tried to ignore it. But the gym had other plans. One night around 2 in the morning, I was sitting behind the desk, scrolling my phone, when I heard the sound of metal clanging somewhere in the weight room. You know that sound when someone drops a dumbbell after finishing a set? That heavy clank. At first, I thought someone had come in, without me noticing. It happens sometimes if you're distracted. So I stood up and walked out into the main gym floor. The lights were dim out there. Overnight mode. Only half the rows of lights stayed on. The place looked empty. But then I heard it again. Clank. From the far side of the gym. The deadlift platform. I walked toward it slowly. And that's when I saw the barbell. The bar was loaded with plates. Looked like maybe 315 pounds. And it was moving, just slightly, like someone had just lifted it and dropped it. But the platform was empty. No one around. No reflection in the mirrors. Nothing. I stood there for a solid 30 seconds staring at it before finally convincing myself maybe it had just rolled or something. Still, that weight doesn't just move on its own. I went back to the desk after that and kept the security camera feed open on the monitor. Around 2:17 a.m., the computer beeped again. Another check-in. This time I decided to look at the system profile. The member name that popped up made my stomach drop. David Keller. The same guy from the first night. Curiosity got the better of me. So I opened his profile. Membership status. Inactive. Last visit. 5 years ago. There was even a note attached to his file. Just one line. Deceased. I stared at the screen for a long time after reading that, trying to convince myself it had to be some kind of error. But then the camera monitor flickered, and one of the cameras switched automatically to the squat rack area. like someone had selected it. Except I hadn't touched anything. And on the screen, I saw movement, just for a second, like someone walking past a mirror. But the thing was, there was no one there. I leaned closer to the screen. The empty squat rack sat perfectly still. Then suddenly the barbell on the rack bent downward slightly, like invisible hands had just grabbed it. I felt this cold chill crawl up my back. And right at that moment, the sound of someone breathing echoed through the gym, not through the speakers, not through the vents. It sounded like it was right behind me. Slow, heavy breathing, like someone who had just finished a brutal workout. I froze. Every instinct in my body told me not to turn around. But curiosity wins against fear more often than people like to admit. So slowly, I turned, and standing behind the front desk, right where the entrance hallway meets the gym floor, was a man, tall, broad shoulders, dressed in old-school gym clothes, gray tank top, black shorts. His skin looked pale under the fluorescent lights. And his eyes, man, I swear to God his eyes looked like he hadn't slept in years. He didn't say anything, just stared at me. Then he nodded toward the gym floor, like he expected me to follow him. And before I could even say a word, he walked into the darkness between the weight machines. I sat there frozen, trying to process what I had just seen. Then I slowly looked back at the computer screen. The membership check-in log was still open, and next to David Keller's name, the status had changed. It now said, and that's when the screaming started, from the weight room,